What if I had told you a college football player could make more money by staying in school than by going pro? Sounds impossible, right? But that's exactly what happened to Shedeur Sanders. He turned pro after 3 years in college, but if he'd stayed one more year, he might have made more money through endorsement deals. This episode is about more than football. It's about how college sports in America have changed dramatically in just the past few years, and how money, identity, and education are colliding in ways that no one saw coming. And yes, even Donald Trump has weighed in, saying college sports is broken and it needs fixing. But how did we get here? And what does it tell us about America? In fact, up until just a few years ago, college athletes couldn't earn any money. They were paid with a full scholarship, tuition, and room and board, because, as you probably know, the price of higher education is really expensive in America. And depending on the university, tuition alone can be up to $70,000 a year. Add in housing and meals, and some athletes received over $180,000 in value across 4 years. Not bad, right? Except some athletes helped generate millions for their university. Chris Webber, a famous college basketball player in the 90s, once told a story. He saw his own jersey selling out in a bookstore, while he himself barely had enough money for food. But before I talk about how this all changed and how athletes started to get paid, it's first important to understand college sports in America. Because I'm not sure there's any other country where amateur athletics is such a big business or so passionately followed. Hey, just a quick note. If you're learning English and want to go beyond textbooks, you're in the right place. I teach English using comprehensible input, which means you learn the language by hearing and seeing real English in context, not by memorizing grammar rules. Not only is this more enjoyable, it's way more effective. If that sounds good to you, hit like, subscribe, and keep watching. It really helps me reach more people so I can help them. Also, the transcripts of everything I say are available for free on my website. I'll leave the link in the description. In fact, where I live in Germany, people often ask me if I have a favorite football team. And after I excitedly answer, yeah, the Florida Gators, they look confused and say, I haven't heard of them. And unless they've been to America and have witnessed a college football game themselves, Germans don't understand that for a lot of Americans, college sports are better than professional ones. For some context, the biggest soccer stadium in Germany is in Dortmund and seats just over 81,000 people. In other words, the stadium has a capacity of 81,000 spectators, which makes it the 6th largest in all of Europe. The largest is in Barcelona, which after renovations will soon have a capacity of over 100,000 spectators. Pretty impressive, right? Well, in college football, 8 stadiums can actually hold over 100,000 people. The largest, by the way, is the University of Michigan Stadium, which seats 107,000 spectators. My favorite team, the Florida Gators, play in a stadium that holds 90,000 fans, and it gets loud. Just listen to the crowd explode here. Between the heat, the humidity, and the passion, it's like anything I've seen elsewhere. The popularity of college sports is not just limited to football, however. It's true, the biggest sporting event in America is the Super Bowl, which is professional football. But what do you think the number 2 event is? Well, it isn't the NBA Finals or the World Series. In fact, it's not a professional sport at all. It's college basketball. To be precise, it's the Final Four, the last weekend of the March Madness tournament. which, as the name suggests, is a knockout or winner-go-home basketball tournament that takes place in March. And it is a massive cultural event. In fact, some studies estimate that employers lost $17.3 billion in productivity due to their employees watching games during work. Other studies reported 40% of workers called in sick due to March Madness related activities. By the way, I'm happy to report that my Florida Gators won the entire tournament this last year, making them the current national champions. Anyway, the point is, for many Americans, college sports are better than the pros. But why is that? Well, for one, many parts of the US don't have a local professional team, so the nearby university becomes the team people root for. And second, college sports feels more personal. Fans often have a real connection to the school as students, alumni, or locals. It's about identity, pride, and community. And before NIL, or name, image, and likeness, these athletes played not for money, but for pride. These athletes gave everything to their school. They poured it all out, and fans loved them for it. But today, that's changing. Remember Chris Webber? Well, his story stuck with people, and it helped spark change. Eventually. In 2021, a rule change allowed college athletes to finally earn money from endorsements and sponsorships, essentially to profit from being famous. So an athlete like Chris Webber could actually earn money from sales of his jersey. Sounds fair, right? But NIL has gone far beyond its original purpose. Instead of simply endorsing shoes or local car dealerships, athletes are now being paid to play. But here's the kicker. They aren't paid through official university channels, but by boosters. In other words, wealthy donors and alumni who make private deals. And because there's no real oversight, the system has become chaotic. One famous example, Jaden Rashada, a high school quarterback, was allegedly promised $13.85 million to play for the University of Florida. Yeah, that's right, that University of Florida. But the deal fell apart and he never joined the team. Why? Because none of it was official. It was all side deals, vague contracts, and broken promises. Not to mention, to pay a kid straight out of high school that much money is insane. At the time, he was 17 years old and unproven. But in this current unregulated world of NIL, kids are able to make money and are jumping at the chance. All of which brings us back to Shedeur Sanders. He's the son of Deion Sanders, a former NFL legend known for his confidence. Some would say arrogance. Deion coached his son at the University of Colorado, and this might have had a, shall we say, negative effect on him overall. Shedeur was once projected to be the #1 overall pick in the NFL draft, but after a disastrous interview with NFL teams, he fell all the way to pick number 144. No one knows exactly what happened, but some reports have called it the worst player interview in the history of the league. Whatever the truth is, the result was dramatic. Here's a short video of Sanders addressing his family and friends after not being drafted on day one.
We all didn't expect this, of course, but I feel like with God, anything possible, everything possible. I don't feel like this happened, for no reason. All this is of course, fuel to the fire. And under no circumstance, we all know this shouldn't have happened. But we understand we on the bigger and better things. Tomorrow's the day. We're going to be happy regardless.
Well, by day 3, he still hadn't been picked, and you could see his confidence start to fade. Honestly, I felt bad for him. In the end, Sanders dropped 4 full rounds and almost didn't get drafted at all. Here's the irony. By going pro, he actually lost money. If he'd stayed 1 more year in college, he likely would have earned even more through NIL than his current NFL rookie deal. His draft contract is worth about $4.6 million over 4 years. He made more than that in college endorsements alone. So yeah, things have changed. College athletes are now sometimes making more than the pros. And without centralized rules or oversight, we're in a Wild West moment where high schoolers are being offered millions, schools are getting into bidding wars, and the spirit of college sports is getting lost. So whether you think this new system is fair or broken, one thing is clear. The story of Shedeur Sanders shows how money, sports, and identity are colliding in a whole new way.